So I am recording, so anybody who missed it, they can catch up later. So here we go. Hi, my name is Kevin Lauver. We are talking about remote work today. And just a quick intro, although I think from the list, I know most of you. I'm Kevin Lauver. I'm the CTO at Planted. I'm also the co-founder of Tech SAV. I've been remote for around 10 years. I've led remote teams. I've also led distributed teams, and I am here to help. So I'm going to try and get through this fairly quickly. But our agenda today, I wanted to cover sort of day-to-day practicalities of remote life, and then logistics and hardware, because it's actually kind of important. And then we'll get into team dynamics and technology. And then for the managers in the room, managing remote teams. So day-to-day practicalities. I want to start off by, if this is your first time trying remote work, life is not normal right now, and it is okay not to be okay. Stuff is really stressful. There are a lot of unknowns, and if you're not feeling very productive right now, you are not alone, and that's okay. So take care of yourself, and just because you're distracted now doesn't mean that remote work isn't going to work for you in the long run. There is also a lot in this presentation. I tried to pack everything into it. So if you don't catch it all, that's fine. We are recording it, and I'll send the slides to whoever wants them, and I'll post them to Twitter and Facebook when it's done. So let's do it. We'll try to keep it light. So remote life, it's like normal life. Starting out, it can be hard to work at home because home is, it's not where you're used to working, it's where you're used to relaxing. So the key is to build transitions into your day to get in the right mental place for work, which means building a commute. So I have a routine in the morning that replaced my lovely commute. I make coffee, I clean out the dishwasher, I listen to a podcast while doing that, and then I make the long walk all the way from the kitchen to my home office, and ta-da, I'm ready for work. I have coworkers who exercise in the morning before work, do yoga. You need some sort of routine to break the I'm at home relaxing moment and get into work mode. So the other key thing is to have a place for work. Remote work sort of falls apart because people think they can work the same place as they relax. Working on the couch, working from bed, not super effective because that's where you sleep or where you watch TV. And if you can't set aside a dedicated place for working, make sure where you are is set up for work, meaning have your coffee, have headphones, have your mouse and keyboard, whatever you need to do to mentally get into work mode, even if that's at the dining room table right now. And yeah, headphones, super important. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Take breaks. I think these days my attention span doesn't exist, so I'm taking a lot more breaks than normal. But in normal times, when you're working remote, or when I am, it's really easy to get lost in work without the normal rhythms of the office. Like when I was in an office, lunchtime just sort of is a social cue. Like people start getting up, you hear the microwave ding, people start talking about where they're gonna eat. At home, it's just you and probably your kids at the moment. Try out systems for breaks. There's a thing called the Pomodoro technique. There are lots of tutorials on it on the web. There are lots of apps you can use. It's a good place to start. You sort of set timers for yourself, 15 to 30 minutes on, 5-minute break, and then back, and then a 15-minute break every 2 hours. The systems vary depending on the variation. And then have a plan. Like taking breaks, it's really easy for me to get lost in a single task and forget that there's other things that I need to do. Again, the Pomodoro technique. If you haven't read Getting Things Done is a great book on how to organize all of the things that you need to do during the day so the right things get done at the right time. So there you go, that's day-to-day life. Logistics and hardware, meetings. Someone asked before this started for pros and cons of each video platform. I'm not gonna do that because there are too many and I haven't used them all. I do think Zoom and Google Meet are probably the two most popular, and they both work fine for meetings as long as you follow the rest of these rules, especially muting yourself when you're not talking. WebEx, I have never had a successful meeting where we were trying to get things done via WebEx. It's fine for webinars. And then beyond that, I can't really say I've used anything else. Skype is all right, I guess. Video and audio quality don't seem as good as Zoom. So there you go, recommendations over for platform. If you're not talking, please mute yourself. There's just a lot of background noise. There's traffic noise, there's construction noise. I have coworkers in New York, there's constantly a siren. Somebody's mic is always picking up a siren, so mute yourself. Also, keyboards are loud, and also no one wants to hear you chew. Also, look into the camera. This is difficult sometimes at home if your laptop is not your main monitor. But it's really important, like the reason you do video in meetings is that it makes it more like in person. It makes it easier to pick up on social cues. And it just works better. Now that everyone is working from home and you might have partners and kids, try not to point your camera at the bathroom. We had a couple wardrobe malfunctions that we learned about this week. It was fun. Keep you from being the surprise guest star in your all hands meeting. And then share your screen. Super helpful to have whatever presentation you're doing or thing you're demoing right there in front of everyone. And then if you have a lot of people in meetings regularly, say more than 7 or 10 to 10, come up with a system for requesting to speak. It's really hard when everyone's sort of jumping over each other to try and get a point across. This is another thing where video is actually way more helpful than a conference line because you can see people starting to talk and you can wait. You can use the built-in chat to raise your hand. Some people do an actual raising their hand on video with a 1 or 2 or 3 so they know what order they're in. And then the more people you have in a video call, the less likely you are to get things done. So if you can, or you have to change the style. So if you have 30 people in a meeting, then it needs to be much more a presentation and much less of a conversation. Video meetings are kind of the same thing as the ideal team size. They're 7 plus or minus 3. So 10 is about as many as you can fit into one thing where you're trying to have a conversation. This is my favorite metaphor for remote life, the business mullet. So it's not a normal mullet, which is party in front, business in back. It's party up top, or business up top, party down below. So because you're going to be on video, you need to be presentable from the shoulders up, right? And then you just have to remember that you're still working even though you're at home. So take a shower, wear clean clothes, well, at least a t-shirt. But beyond that, like the pants game, totally wide open now. You can do pajama pants. I love pajama pants, workout shorts, and then just, don't forget not to stand up while you're on camera or everyone will make fun of your pants. Audio hardware, if you need recommendations. I'm not saying you need these right now, today, but if remote becomes a long-term thing, then think about them. Don't use your computer mic, especially if you're going to be typing during the meeting because everyone will hear your keyboard and not you. So Worst case scenario for now, use your phone earbuds if you can. Bluetooth headsets are fine. My favorite is good headphones and then add on a mic. There are, Antlion makes a really good one, and drop.com also has one that's not currently available. So go to antlion.com, because then you get the great sound of great headphones, and then everyone gets to hear your lovely voice through a decent microphone. And as a bonus, you look like a helicopter pilot in your video calls. So video hardware, if your laptop isn't your main screen and your people are looking at you askew, consider getting a separate webcam for the top of your main screen. You can also use your phone. I've done that before. I had microphone issues, and so I would just use my phone on a little stand for video calls, and it was fine. So there you go. Any questions about meetings in chat before we? Nope. So Miriam, that's a really good suggestion. If you are an expert in WebEx or other platforms and have recommendations, throw them in chat and everyone will be able to see them, or email me afterwards and we'll do a blog post or something and list people. So collaboration tools, you have to find some way to replace the whiteboard and the in-person post-it note on a wall idea sessions. So Google Suite, G Suite has pretty much everything. It's really the only platform that I have used consistently. So I haven't ever used Office 365 or Teams. I hear they're catching up, but aren't quite there yet. Try it out, see what works for you. You probably, if you're a startup, you probably already use Google Suite. We frequently, during meetings, have a separate Google Doc running for notes and brainstorming. It helps a lot because not everyone has to talk, and then you don't have to have a dedicated minute taker if everyone is helping out by writing things down. It's one of my favorite things in the world to, as someone's typing, come along and correct their grammar right behind them, and then they yell at me. It's the best thing, it makes me very happy. Also, Google Jamboard is really cool. If you really like whiteboards, it's a great collaborative whiteboard. You can make them as big as you want. So you could have a mile-long whiteboard for brainstorming and other things. You could maybe even do your Kanban board in it. If you don't know what Kanban is, we're going to talk about it a little bit. You can get everyone on the whiteboard. You can share, and then you can share the screen on the call so everyone can see what's going on. If you are doing design things, this one's really hard to recreate virtually, but Zeppelin's really good for commenting on designs and then the handoff from design to development. There's also Marvel app, marvelapp.com. Expect a cease and desist from the comic book folks any day, but it looks really cool for actual real-time collaboration on designs. I think Adobe Cloud probably has some stuff, but I'm not a designer, so I haven't used them. Don't see any new questions, we'll keep going. So comfort and productivity. I am usually not productive if I am in pain or not comfortable. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these since these are long-term things, but if you end up working remote for an extended period of time, all of these will make you happier and more productive. Investing in your comfort is an investment in your productivity. So a good chair, you can use a gaming chair. There are some that don't look ridiculous. They're usually cheaper, but you can also get used Aeron Herman Miller fancy chairs from eBay for like 200 or 300 bucks, depending on the condition. Having a separate monitor is super important, and standing desks are awesome. Monoprice and IKEA both have really nice automated ones that are way cheaper than a lot of the competitors. I have the autonomous desk because it came out first, and with a custom top from Southern Pine Company. Yay, Southern Pine Company. And it's great. It really helps me stand up and take breaks during the day while not stopping working. No new questions? Okay. So great. You've got your workspace set up. You are super productive, but unfortunately you work with other people. And so you have to figure out team dynamics for remote life. You have to replace, like I said, you have to replace that in-person collaboration with something. And you have to facilitate those hallway, hey, got a sec interactions that really drive getting things done at work. And you have to be thoughtful and intentional about it because you can't really see what everyone's doing. So it's really time for your team to think about all of the ways that you communicate. This is just a small selection of all of the ways that teams communicate. Email, text messages, support tickets, Asana task messages in Slack, direct messages in Slack, actually talking to them, so phone calls. Do you have an expected turnaround time for each of those? Is it documented? Does everyone agree to it? Is it measurable? So do you know the lifetime of all your support tickets from the time you receive it to first response to concluded? If you don't, it's time to really consider setting up service level agreements. Like you probably have at least one thing in your life where you have a service level agreement for work, whether it's your phone company or your hosting provider. It's just what your agreed upon time for things to happen is, whether it's downtime or response time or whatever. But they work really well for people. And then once you have an SLA, make sure that you use the right medium for the message, because not everything is urgent. Not everything needs to be a phone call. In fact, most things don't need to be a phone call. Most things can wait. So be wary of interruptions, and then respect people's downtime. And it's also possible to schedule emails. If you use Gmail or a client like Airmail, you can schedule emails to get sent at times other than when you sent them, when you write them. So if you are up at 3 in the morning, like I am most days these days, and you have a great idea, you don't have to bother, like potentially wake somebody up if they forgot to hit do not disturb, and just schedule it for 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. It's a way to be a good human. So my dad was a fighter pilot. Now he's just a dad. This is my favorite way to think about response times and how to deal with interruptions during the day and notifications. So it was developed to explain how air combat works, but it's been adapted to all kinds of things from disaster response to web operations to business. So it's a process. So anytime there's an input, you observe that input, whether that's a notification on your phone, an email, a text message, whatever, and then you orient yourself. That's processing the information and getting right side up and ready to act. And then you decide, what am I gonna do? Do I need to do anything? Do I need to fire off a response real quick? Do I need to tell them I need to think about it and it's gonna take a while? You have to decide and then act. Then you do whatever that is. So make sure that the things you allow to break your attention are worth it and make you get through this cycle faster. This is a great way to decide which notifications you actually send your team and what information needs to be in them. So anything that gets in the way of this cycle is unnecessary, and you just need to move it to another medium or remove it altogether. This is the Wikipedia article on the OODA Loop is really good. There's a diagram and everything. But like there's a I think an instinct when we start looking at our processes to over notify and send notifications for everything. You should monitor everything, but you don't need to alert on everything. You don't need to notify somebody about every little thing. It's just something to keep in mind. Like, is this message actionable? If not, why am I sending it? Oh, you should just use Slack. It's great. It's lovely. Everybody else uses it. So there are tons of best practices out there. So I started with Planted in 2014 and kind of right away said, hey, we should use Slack because I'm going to be in Savannah and you're going to be in New York. Since we got everybody to use it, emails between the team dropped by 90% at least, if not more. It's almost 100%. The only time I send emails when I'm forwarding something or saying, hey, I'm taking these days off as an FYI. We do almost all of our work in Slack. If you don't currently use it for work and would like to check it out first, TechSAV has a Slack group that you can join. If you send an email to info@techsav.co, we'll shoot you an invite and you can come play around and see if it's for you. If you don't know what Slack is, sorry, I should have said this at the beginning. Slack is a group chat thing for work. It's like old school AOL chat rooms, which is probably why I'm so comfortable there. We'll talk about it in a minute. Okay. So, oh wait, we are later. Sorry. This is really, it's just really weird doing this all virtually and not being able to see my audience or see if anyone is still paying attention. So excuse the ums and fumbles. We will talk about Slack apps later. It's important to remember that while you're working remote, no one can see you. Oh, yay, thanks, Jeremy. So be deliberate about showing you're available and working, right? It's helpful to ping channels when you're working on something. We have multiple channels for stupid stuff in Slack, like cute animals. We have a channel called AW with multiple W's where we just share cat pictures we find. Mostly it's stuff from We Rate Dogs because We Rate Dogs is the best. We have stuff for working out to encourage each other to get moving. But for work, like just say that you're there. Wave every once in a while. So for Slack, there's a great Google Calendar app that you can connect to your Slack that will show when you're in a meeting. So if your little status icon in Slack is a calendar, everybody knows you're in a meeting, which is awesome. And then to show availability, like when you're at work, everybody kind of knows if you've gone to the bathroom because you're not at your desk and you're walking towards the bathroom. But in Slack, no one knows you're in the bathroom, which is awesome because you can reply to people while you're in there. But we use BRB and then the back emoji as a response to say that we're back. I have a screenshot of that. I'll show you in a second. And then don't forget to sign off at the end of the day. If you are no longer working, Slack should be closed and you should be marked as offline so people know not to bug you. So this is what our Slack looks like this week. Sometimes people are in our New York office and it's not this BRBE, but this is what we do. So if I go away, like I have to go tend a loaf of bread or something, I'll say BRB in our general channel. And then when I'm back, I add the back emoji as the icon. Oh yeah, so for Zoom for a meeting, we use we call it the Brady Bunch view. So there's a gallery view where everybody gets their own little icon in there, or their own little video, and it tiles, and so you look like the Brady Bunch opening credits. That's the best way to do video chats because you can see everybody all at once. I'm not doing it now because you're all too pretty and will distract me. So here's the Google Calendar app. So like I said, there's a little Google Calendar. The little calendar icon is my status. It is my status right now because I am in this meeting right here. So it is really easy to forget that you have coworkers when you're working at home. So one of the side effects of that is that I forget to ask for help when I need it. And then people forget to ask me for help. And so people flounder. So we have a rule I've planted. It's a rule I've had at my past several workplaces is don't spin your wheels. If you are working on something and can't come up with a solution within 30 minutes. Ask for help. So remember to reach out. Remember to share and celebrate successes. And then emoji response reactions are the best thing ever in Slack. You can customize them, which is super fun and also annoying, especially when people get into the animated parrots. So Miriam had a question about Slack and how general collects mixed up messages. General should only be for things that are important to everyone. So that's why our team is small. So we do BRB in general. If you have multiple teams and they are all 7 to 10 people or more, then you should do BRB in those separate things. I'm in some really large Slacks, like Code Bar is really big and Code for America is even bigger. They've locked general down almost completely. They have an announcement channel that only admins can post to. If you have upwards of 100 people in Slack, it can get super noisy. So yes, you should lock general down. This is where the culture building comes in. You have to set rules and expectations for this stuff. If general is too noisy, then kick those conversations to appropriate channels. Oh yeah, we're on this slide. So back to the slide. Don't hesitate to jump on a call. There's video calls built right into Slack. They are fine for one-on-one. They are terrible for multiple people. So you can change the video call provider. You could do Hangouts, you could do Zoom. It doesn't really matter. But like, offer to jump on a call. If you've been typing for 10 minutes and the problem still isn't solved, get on a call, talk it through. So all of this being deliberate about reaching out and showing presence and showing availability, it will feel like over communicating at the beginning. But we're replacing what used to be social in-person or in-person social signals. And you have to find another way to do it. And once you get used to it though, you'll wonder how you did things before. It'll be hard to talk to people in person. You will much rather talk to people online. You'll become, you know, the troll in the closet. No, don't do that. Don't be the troll in the closet. It is just, it becomes second nature. It's just a tool and it just takes getting used to. So if Slack is where you get work done, you should integrate everything with Slack. So most SaaS products that you use have a Slack app at this point. Use them, make sure they're in the right channel so the right people see them and can act on them. And then make sure the notifications are actually important and actionable. So we use Pivotal Tracker for all of our development stuff. By default, it sends every single change to a story to Slack. That's super annoying. I don't need to know when someone has started a story. I only need to know if a story has been delivered, accepted, or rejected, or there's a new comment, which is, those are the things that are important. If a story's been rejected, then I need to know that so I can go work on it. If a story's been delivered, then whoever's doing QA needs to know that so they can go test it. All of that's important because your attention is finite, especially now. So don't abuse it. You know, you be its friend. And if you do this correctly and have the right notifications going to the right people at the right time, you can almost get rid of emails altogether, which is awesome. Because email is terrible. So someone just asked about working with lots of external teams and lots of different tools. I'm gonna save that one for the end, so hang out because it's kind of, it's a big answer. So let's get to managing people. It's not about presence anymore. You can't make the rounds like you used to and see that butts are in chairs. It's got to be about the work because that, at the end of the day, that's what matters. And this is where the cultural shift, especially if you've been managing people for a while, is the hardest. This is the hardest part. If you haven't read why managing sucks and how to fix it, I 100% recommend it. It is the book I recommend the most for managing people and talking about sort of the future of how we do work. It's all about the results only work environment, or ROE, if you've heard of that before. This means you have to measure output and not presence. What does your team actually do? Do you measure it? What data do you have? How do you get that data? So product teams have been doing this thing called agile. You've probably heard it. It was a buzzword a long time ago. We've been doing this for years. I've been agile in some form for almost 20. So it's been around. There are lots of different ways to do it. So there are lots of different tools you can pull from agile development processes that will make your life easier, even if you're not building products, you don't have developers, and you don't want to adopt an entire process. You can pick and choose the best parts of it that would be most effective for your organization. Now I'm going to talk about my favorites right now. So your daily stand-up. We do this, every team in Planted does it. Super helpful for orienting your day. So you answer 3 questions and that's it. Everybody, you go around the room virtually, say what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And what do you need help with? And then if somebody does need help, another person on the team says, I can help you with that, and you follow up after the meeting. This meeting is not for solving problems, it's for surfacing work that was done, to be done, and is not being done, to make sure that everyone is unstuck and is productive. So depending on the size of your team, this can take up to 30 minutes, but once you really get rolling, a team of 7 to 10 can get it done in 15. It does take a while to get used to, but it is a really great way to get a health check on your team first thing in the morning and make sure everybody is doing the right thing. Oh, this is my favorite thing. Retrospectives, they are the best. Mostly because humans are really bad at remembering progress over time. So we do retrospectives. At Planted, every team does one at least once a month. And then we answer, in a retrospective, you answer these 3 questions. What went well over the past time period? I usually, for dev teams, I do them every 2 weeks. For the entire company, you can do them every month. And those are sort of a roll up of all the individual team ones. So you ask what went well, what didn't go well, and what are we going to do differently next time? So in a virtual world, we share a retrospective doc ahead of time that has those headings in it, and then people can just add things. Make sure you put your name on them. We do this at least a day before the meeting. And it's not just a great way to memorialize what you did, but it's a great way to make sure you get feedback from the more introverted folks on your team, because they might not speak up during a meeting with everyone in it. Doing retrospectives well takes time. It also takes a lot of trust. For a reason I'll tell you in a minute. It's going to take a while for everyone to get comfortable being honest about maybe things they didn't do very well, or pointing out things that other people didn't do very well that impacted their work. The thing to keep in mind is that the point of retrospectives is, and all of Agile, is to make sure your team is making constant incremental improvement over time. And to make sure that issues on the team are addressed when they come up and done in a way that increases accountability. So in order to do that, you have to create a space where people feel safe being honest, take ownership of their part in the process, and then work together to improve it for everyone. So I've been doing retrospectives for 20 years, and they are the single most effective way to improve a team and to make it better. They give you so much data about what your team is doing and what they're worried about and what help they need as a manager to grow, because that stuff will all come out in a retrospective if you're doing it correctly. Optional add-on questions. We do all of these. What did we accomplish this time? Because again, this is a document that's going to live forever. So you can sort of put in that box, here's the things we got done over the last month, so everyone can see the work of other teams and celebrate it. And then what did we say we were going to improve on last time? And we can check our progress on this, on that stuff. So if you haven't already, now is a great time to start measuring all of your processes. And since you can't see what your employees are doing, can't see them or what they're doing, you need to measure the results of the work. It's time to make sure you're getting all the data you need, instrumenting your processes, and doing experiments to improve them. And it requires you as a manager to pay attention to how things get done, how long it takes, and who ends up doing them. I think in a lot of organizations, it's really easy for folks to get lost in the system and just sort of coast. The more you switch to results only work environment, the more you document and quantify things, the harder it is for people to hide, which is an added bonus. So part of gathering that data is tracking the work. I don't know what your business is. There are probably tools for tracking the work no matter what you do. For us, for non-technical folks, we use Asana. We like it a lot. Oh, someone's asking about the stand-up. Ours happens in a video call. So video calls work best, I think. We have tried virtual stand-ups. I think they're way less effective. It's really helpful to see everybody first thing in the morning and sort of get off on the right foot. So I would highly recommend doing a video call for your stand-up. So for tracking work, we really like Asana. It's really great for breaking things up by teams, and then you can collaborate across teams and projects. For developers, we use Pivotal Tracker. A lot of dev teams also just use GitHub issues for their tracking. You get a little less, metrics from that, but they work. Make sure you know how long work takes, who does it, and why. And then pay attention to the process, measure it, experiment, and then improve it. Because that's innovation. Right? Like all innovation is an improvement to a process. Right now, your processes, if you're moving to virtual, they're going to be in flux. So now is the time to document what you do now and then start adding all of the metrics that you need to track them and experiment on them so you know if that experiment worked or not. So the fun thing about remote work is you have to let it get shifted a little bit. With families adjusting to new realities, it's going to take time for folks to find systems that work for them. The best thing about remote work is that it can happen anywhere and anytime. Let people move their schedules around to fit childcare realities, partner schedules, help them troubleshoot issues with whatever's going on at home and find a way to make it work, because you can make it work. The flexibility of not having a commute, of not needing to be in a specific location at one time, it's a huge win. Sorry, I lost something. Came back. Lost my notes for a second. Let people work when and where they're most productive. Right now they're stuck at home, but like we have lots of folks who really like working in coffee shops because they're, I don't know, weird extroverts and like other people. Let people work when they're most productive, not just from 9 to 5. I know that's really difficult for some jobs, but I think you'd be surprised how many jobs actually don't need to happen from 9 to 5. It takes some trust. So you have to build that trust with your folks. It takes some flexibility in scheduling meetings, but if you manage the work over their presence, honestly, you will see way better productivity from folks in no time flat. So with everyone somewhere other than your office, like I said before, you can't make the rounds like you used to. You also just can't look at the office to see who's there, who's smiling, who looks sad. We talked about, Slack and presence indicators, but as a manager, you need to check in with your people. And depending on the size of your team, you might need to do this in a few different ways. So, like I said, as a manager in office, there are signals you can observe that maybe someone needs help. In a virtual office, those signals exist, but they're not the same. And digital versions of those signals take a long time to get used to. So until you're used to them, be extra proactive about communicating individually with people to make sure they're on track and are getting the support they need. They might not know they need help or know that they can ask for it. So during whatever transition time and even ongoing, it's a really good idea to have more frequent one-on-ones than you're used to. I would do them once a week for now, and then maybe once every 2 weeks. And though, like if you're checking in more often, they can be shorter than usual since you're having them all the time. So in conclusion, I've been remote for a decade almost. It's awesome. Once you really get rolling, it's the best thing ever. It's just different from working in an office, which means you need to do things differently. And now, when everything else is sort of up in the air, now is the time to experiment to make sure that your processes actually work. And as weird as everything is right now, I had this weird light bulb moment yesterday that like everything is possible. Everything that you want to do now is the time to try it because no one's going to tell you not to. This is a great, it's so weird. It's like a hurricane, but instead of deciding if we're leaving, we're deciding how long we're staying in. So it's just time to experiment. It's time to try stuff. I believe in you. You can do it. It's great. Now a word from our sponsor very quickly because I spent a lot of time working on this. I work for Planted. I love it. We're a recruiting platform. We make hiring and finding a job a little less painful. We love hiring for remote positions. You can sign up either as someone looking for a job or as a company at planted.com. I wrote a post earlier this week about remote work on our blog. There is another post that has a lot of the same stuff as this presentation that will be going up on the blog either today or tomorrow. Any questions before we stop? Feel free to reach out. That's my email address. It's kevin@lawver.net if you're on the phone. Planted.com is where I work. techsav.co is the nonprofit that I co-founded and run. We exist to help grow the tech community in Savannah. If you have questions about technology things or how to get started with remote work, send an email to info@techsav.co and I will shoot you an invite. I am also doing office hours. I added another day. So Thursday and Friday afternoons, if you go to lawver.net, there's a link to office hours in the top corner. Click it, grab 30 minutes. We can talk over any questions you have about this. And then I'm on Twitter as @KPLawver. And that is it. Miriam, yeah, that would be a really good idea to have a workshop for nonprofits and cause managers. That's not me. I'll talk to Jen or send an email to Jen. She can handle that. And then the question about, oh yes, the question about external teams. I would seriously look into things like Zapier, zapier.com. It's a way to glue a lot of services together. So if you could create Zapier things for connecting Microsoft Teams to send you a daily digest of messages that have your name in it, for example. That's my biggest suggestions. Also, there's a really good post on GitLab's blog. They've been doing a lot of stuff for remote because they're like, I think 400 plus people and they're fully remote. Now is the time to collapse the tools that you're using. If you have a billion different tools, it's time to get down to 4 or 5 just so you can keep them all straight. So yeah, Leah, if you want to reach out, we can talk through that later. I don't have a ton of stuff off the top of my head other than Zapier to recommend. I'm sorry that you're stuck doing that. Okay, any other questions before we call it a day? Thank you everybody for hanging in with the technical difficulties. I will put the video up on Facebook after talking to Jen. And if you want the slides, please email me and I will send them. So thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm out.